forward to hearing more about skills, not sex, and what the top 10 percenters do to advance their career and life, really, is what we're talking about today. Over to you.
Fantastic. Well, welcome everybody, and I'm glad that you were able to make it. And I want to make this as interactive as possible. So it's just like, you know, that we're having this conversation, and I do want to go over things that that I have learned over the years, and that, you know, by interviewing people, I don't know how many thousands I have, and probably 20,000 plus over the years. So it's been kind of like a case study, like a long-term case study. And, you know, during that time of doing executive search for, you know, some of the top financial institutions in Australia, patterns do form. Like, you do see why people are getting to the top and why others aren't getting to the top. And you do see the patterns. And the great thing about it, it's not hard. It's something that everybody can do. And so that's what I want to do, is take you through today and some of the things that I've learned. And one of the things that I noticed with the people that were really successful, and what I call the top 10 percenters, is that they have great role models, and they have advocates, and they have people in their corner. And, you know, one of the things that I say to people, well, who are your role models? Who's your supermodel? And this picture here represents, I just went to Google and said, who are the top most influential people, that type of thing. And I got a lot of these types of pictures. And, you know, I look at this collage, and I actually added some of my own. You can see Bianca there. And I added Michelle Obama. I added the ones on the right here. Shamara, so people might know Shamara, who's the CEO of Macquarie. There's a lot of people on the screen I would not ask advice from, and I wouldn't follow, but yet they're still considered super role models. And the reason being, because they might not be in the lane that I'm in, or they might have really got to where they've gotten in spite of themselves. So what I saw that the top 10 percenters did really well is they chose really good role models and advocates to be in their corner. People who they, at any point in their career, could contact and say, what about this? You know, should I do this? Can you give me an advice? And I did actually did notice that a lot of, you know, the guys, from the time that they were graduates, would start collecting advocates in their corner. You know, they'd start collecting. So if their brother, their uncle, or somebody would go in there and say, ask for more, and that would start them off on this trajectory. And we actually did pretty intense surveys about these subjects when I was running FRG. And one of the things in the survey is that the guys would, when they were in their first jobs after being a graduate, if they left to go to another, or if their boss left to go to another division, they would keep in contact with that person. And so they start collecting these people throughout their career. And all of a sudden, they've got this little board of directors by the time they're in a management position that they can call up and ask advice. And the girls told us that they didn't keep in contact with ex-bosses because they, if it was a guy, they didn't feel it was appropriate. And if it was a girl, they didn't want to bother her. But the guys didn't care if it was a girl or a guy. So if they had an ex-girl lady boss, they didn't care. They kept in contact with her. So that's going to be an advantage for them when they get to start going for more senior level positions. And I saw that because they would get to the final shortlist or at those final interviews. And I could tell they had people in their corner that they were calling up and asking things like, what's the interviewer like? What should I look out for? What's the background of the people within that team? And all of a sudden they had intel that was really pretty powerful, enough to get them over that line. So having really good role models and people that are in your lane. So when you choose your advocates, and if you don't have advocates right now, like let me ask Camilla, and let me ask you guys, if you were looking for an advocate right now, like how many people do you feel you could call and ask advice for that are not family members? Like 1, 2, just go 1, 2, or any? 5? That's good. You got 5. You've got 1. So Nicole's got 1. Ellie's joined us. Any advocates that you could call and ask for advice today? If you were going for a job, how many people could you call outside your family and your immediate friends that you could call and say, I'm going for a job in XYZ division, and what can you tell me about the person, or can you give me some advice? Do you feel like you've got people that you can call and do that? Well, let me just tell you, on average, someone in their 30s, let's say, so they're just getting ready and going to those management position, should have between 7 and 12 people in there as advocates, and because you don't want all the same. You want, people with a little bit different. You might want somebody, let's say, being in marketing, because I know, Camilla, I know you're in marketing. So you would have someone who's probably 3 levels than you in marketing going down that lane. But then you might have somebody else who's really good at the operations side of the business. And that's something that you're trying to learn. You might have somebody who has a legal background. Somebody might have an accounting background. You might have different backgrounds of people to ask. Human resources. So you think about it as your own board of directors. Now on that picture on here, you'll see that I've got, do you guys know who she is? Does everybody know who she is that I'm pointing to right here? So that's Shamara, and she is the CEO of Macquarie, and she is the 4th highest paid CEO in Australia. And who wouldn't want her as a role model? Hard to ask. But the thing with Shamara, she came to Australia at 13 from London. If you look at her background, she has probably everything in her background that most people would say would prevent them, would be hard for them to get to where she is. So she's Sri Lankan, she's female, she came to Australia when she was 13, she went to a public school, and she started to work at Macquarie, which is a fairly male-dominated at the time that she went there. Now, she's the 4th highest paid CEO in Australia, and her husband is a house husband. Right? And he didn't just start that when she became the CEO. Her kids are teenagers now, and that when the kids were about 5. So if you go back and read every interviews about with Shamara speaking, you'll get inspired. You'll start going, oh my God, that's really good. And so those are the type of people that you want to choose as your advocates or your people. Obviously, you can't call Shamara up and say, hey, could I get some advice? You're probably not going to be able to do that. But people,
I was going to say that because I've tried many times, actually.
Many times, yeah. I've
only
sure
spoken to her once, I think. She's always someone I want to interview.
Yeah, she's great. She spoke at one of our conferences, and she is so. The other thing about her is she's not one of these people who's like really out there. She's just very humble and approachable. She's just very nice. So if you're sort of looking at the profile of the so-called CEO and what they're supposed to have getting there, well, that's not her profile, but she did it. And why did she do it? Because she had great advocates and role models and mentors. She didn't put any blocks in front of her. She's a true top 10%er. She, she tells some great stories about, that obviously people, did, in the beginning, she said, I had to stop thinking of myself as a CEO with brown skin. and start thinking of myself as a CEO and a leader, a good leader with a great team. So getting there, if there was any kind of discrimination or blockage or whatever, she put it out of her mind and just went and did a great job and proved otherwise. So the people that you choose as your advocate, respect is very important. Look at their backgrounds. Make sure that they have had a successful background, and that they're the type of person that you want to emulate. Like, you wouldn't put all your money, you wouldn't give all your money to a financial planner who's never done qualifications in financial planning, right? So you want to make sure that whoever it is that you're trusting your career to understands where you're going. And don't be afraid to approach them. A lot of times people are very, I noticed at our conference, Shamara standing there so often with nobody around her, because you know why? People were scared to approach her. And I always say, if you be the person who approaches the most senior person in the room, because they're the person who's less likely for anybody to approach them, and they're going to love it if you come up to them. So, don't be afraid to do that, to approach someone and ask, what's the worst thing? What's the worst thing that happens if you ask someone to be an advocate or a coach? They say, oh, look, I haven't got time right now, or no. That's the worst thing. That's not the end of the world. You move on, because most people will say yes. But you have to, don't get discouraged if the first couple say no. You just got to keep going until you get your group of people, until you have people. So like I said, when you're in your 30s and mid 30s, you should start thinking about having 7 to 12 people in your corner that you can contact during your career for advice at different stages, and always have more than one. So I want to talk today about who my top 10% was and who my first one was, and why this is important. So this is a picture of my grandmother, who's also in that list. And obviously she's not a supermodel, right? But she was my supermodel. And the reason why is because, she 5'2", red hair, as wide as she was tall, but when she walked into that room, she commanded attention. She wasn't Cindy Crawford, right? And you don't need to be Cindy Crawford or a supermodel to be to be successful. She walked in there and she commanded, because she believed it. She believed in herself. And I always tell the story about when I was little, I had to go to church with her, and she would go to the front row of this massive, huge cathedral that nobody ever sits in the front row. And she would sing the loudest, she would pray the loudest, and the worst part about her singing the loudest is that she was always a step ahead of everybody else, and she couldn't sing. And that didn't matter to her, because she was being on her own terms. And often when I do presentations, and I've done this before, back in the days when we could actually see people, is that I would notice nobody sits in the front row. And so one time I said to the ushers, wait till everybody sits down. There was probably 300 or 400 people at the presentation. And I made them take the empty front row seats out. And you should have seen the second row people. They were like, oh my God, I'm in the front row now. And I'm like going, why are you worried about being in the front row and being seen? And, those are they're like someone like my grandmother. I learned from her is not to be scared and not to worry about being in the front row. And it's about confidence. It's about confidence. She also told me a lot of things about, don't be putting off things tomorrow, what you can do today. She thought if she wanted to do something, she just did it. And the other thing she did, which always stays with me, and what good top 10%ers do, is catch more bees with honey. You don't have to be the bad person to be a good leader. A good leader gets things done by getting people involved, and you don't have to be a lot of times people say, oh, I need to be aggressive. I need to be, I need to show them what I mean. And I go back to Shamara. She's the nicest person, right? She's the nicest person. And she's not, people, McCoy love her. And it's about communicating and about asking and about being firm but fair. It's not about being mean. So that from a career point of view went all through my career. And, I remember, and I do tell the story in the book about when I first started working at Citicorp, and when I came from the States and I worked for Citicorp. And one of my first bosses, he was English, and he'd say, love, can you do this? Or love, can you do that? And I'm like going, I was about 25, 26. And I was like, I can't have this guy calling me love. Like, this is just like, I just never heard anything like that before. Because where I came from, we called everybody by their last name. That's how different the culture was. So the bank that I worked for in Dallas, I was Ms. Tramer, and we called everybody by their last names. So for him to go, love, can you do this? I'm like, oh my God. And so I thought to myself, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to get him to stop doing love? I don't want to go to HR and make a big deal out of it. I'm fairly new, that kind of thing. And so I remember what my grandmother said. And I said to him, I go, look, I don't have a problem with you calling me love if you don't have a problem with me responding, no problem, sweetie. And he's like he's about 40 years old. And he's like, I could just see him. I can't have this young girl calling me sweetie, right? And so anyway, he goes, point taken. And he never called me love again. And he never called any of the girls love as well, because he was calling everybody love. And he goes, point taken. And it didn't ruin the relationship. And one of the things I saw over the years with the people that I deal with is that if you just communicate with someone and tell them how you're feeling and not make a big song and dance, but you got to nip it in the bud right away. So if someone's saying something or doing something, you got to nip it in the bud right away and just be nice and do it quickly. I used to have to go out and see clients as well. And I used to go with a guy, we were both BDMs and we were both at the same level. And so we'd go out to see the client. And I remember the first time I went out with him, he goes, can you take the notes? And he started talking, and I thought, this was in the meeting with the client. So Judy, you take the notes. And so I couldn't say anything then. But after that meeting, I said to him, I said, I'm not your secretary. I go, next time you do the opening and I'll take the notes, and I'll do the close and you take the notes, and then we'll switch it off that way. And so I set the terms of engagement, basically, because there was no way I was going to let that happen continually. And he goes, oh, okay, fine. And it didn't ruin the relationship. So I think from the point of view of communicating with people is getting that confidence to bring it up, but bring it up nice, set the parameters. If that doesn't work, well, then you're going to have to take it higher, but at least you've tried. And that's what I've seen over the years. Communication is a really strong point with top 10 percenters. The other thing is their communication skills are always, like I said, up front. Their mindset is very much, I can do this. Why can't I do this? I think the thing is that a lot of times we go, I can't do this, rather than why can't I do this? And I think that a lot of times that holds you back because you second guess yourself. And the other thing is, if you think about these things as kind of a domino effect, if you have people in your corner and you have, the advocates, then when you are doubting yourself, you have that cheerleader to go to as well. So everybody needs a cheerleader in their corner as well. So when you're finding your advocates, you need the person who's the cheerleader that says, what's the big deal? You just do it. You're great, that kind of stuff. And then you also need the person who is who's going to critique, who's not going to tell you everything that you want to hear. And that's where, like I said, you want a different group of advocates. But one of the things that they're very good at is communication, and make sure that that's a really difficult we're in a difficult situation right now, because communication right now is harder because we're not in the offices together, and we're trying to communicate with colleagues and things like that over Zoom or on the phone, and things get taken out of context or misinterpreted. Emails get misinterpreted. And if one thing I can say that is really important these days is that you kind of almost have to over communicate. Otherwise, it might be taken wrong. And so don't forget your common courtesies, because soft skills are really important. And that's what top 10 percenters are very strong in. So when you're communicating in an email, who am I communicating and how are they going to interpret this? If you send an email that just says, Mary, I need this by 5, that's it. Well, Mary's going to go, what's your problem? What's her problem? She needs this by 5. Like, is there something wrong with her? But you've got to really say, hi, Mary. You got to go, hi, Mary. Hope your day is going well. Could I have this by 5? Because they're very good about telling the why. So if you're giving people a directive, or if you're speaking to a colleague or whatever, just instead of giving them the directive, give them the why. This is why I need it. Building up your stakeholder relationships within your career is really important, because they're the people who are going to be your background cheerleaders. You won't even know it. And if you've got good relationships with internal stakeholders because of the way you've been communicating with them, those are the people that are going to tell other people that they like you. Those are the people that are going to refer you for opportunities within the organization. And the same goes if you're not communicating very nicely with internal stakeholders. Because when I was doing executive search, the people on the short list didn't know why they didn't get the role, because the company would give them the standard. Because when we did an executive search assignment, we did the internal process and the external process. So we put everybody into the pool. And the internal candidates were often told by the hiring manager why they didn't get the role, but they would just give them the standard line. You did a great job. It was a really tough lineup. We went with someone else that had a little bit more skills and X, Y, Z. We'll keep you in mind for the next time. That's what they would say just about to every single person. But the reality is, a lot of times an internal stakeholder said something about that person, or maybe they didn't. One time I had the situation where I was in the boardroom with the managing director and the key account, or the leadership team, and they were interviewing for an executive level position. And they had a short list of candidates, and the managing director, we were organizing times for the panel interviews. And the managing director says, I don't see so-and-so booked in here yet for the panel interview. Why? And his PA said, I have been trying to contact him and he just has not returned the phone calls. I've been trying to get that interview organized for the last week. And the managing director goes, well, he obviously isn't that interested, so let's take him off the list. Now, that person, arrogance got in the way of an opportunity, because that's basically, if you're not returning the phone call to the managing director, you seriously got something wrong, because that is like one of the most important key stakeholders within the organization. So, common courtesy would be, if someone leaves you, the managing director's PA leaves you a message, you better get on that phone and call them back. But that person lost that opportunity. So understanding that these common courtesies are so important, and communicating how you communicate, everybody's watching. So that is really, really important. The other thing that I noticed that the top 10 percenters had, is that they're confident, not arrogant. And, you know, everybody, you know, you guys probably understand the difference of that. Confident, you know, you see a confident person who just knows that they can do it. They don't need to throw people under the bus. They don't need to take people's achievements. They're confident in what they've done, what they can do. Like Shamara, like every time, if you go in and you Google her, she'll talk about all the people that she used to work for, and that, oh no, it's not me, it's the team, it's the whole, you know, it's not about, you know, I'm not responsible for the achievements, it's the team, it's the person who I used to work for, it's all, she brings in everybody. And that's a confident person. An arrogant person will take responsibility for everything. They'll take responsibility for your achievements as well. So it's very, you know, so, and we've all, and when I used to interview people at those senior levels, I knew the difference, because the confident person would talk about their achievement and they could tell the story. They could tell you exactly how it happened and the result. The arrogant person was all I, but they couldn't tell the story. There were gaps in the story. That's because it wasn't their story. And when you interview enough people over and over the years, you do see the difference in that. The other thing is that top 10 percenters own their achievements. So why is this important? Because when you're going for your reviews or your promotions and that type of thing, you need to own your achievements. And one of the things that I did notice, and I will kind of separate the genders here, is that the guys would go, yep, I'm at 120% of budget, fabulous year, blah, blah, blah. Oh, are you at 120% of budget right now? And this would be like in December. Oh no, but by June I will be. And you're not at 120% of budget. And I would ask female candidates, how are you going this year? Where are you? Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Well, what's pretty good? I'm at 150% of budget right now. Why didn't you say that? Why isn't it in your resume? Oh, because I've been doing that for the last couple of years. I had to coach so many female candidates about putting achievements on their resume and following the so what principle. So you know, you guys probably all have a, well, I hope you do. I hope you have a sample resume or your resume on your desktop that's all up to date, ready to go. But if you don't, then every time you make an achievement, you should be putting it in in an achievement box, and it should follow what I call the so what principle. So for instance, if you're in marketing and on your resume you say, I developed a new marketing program for the marketing department, and that's on your resume. If I got that resume in, I'd go, so what? It could have been the worst program in the world, right? But if you said, I developed a new marketing program for the marketing department that improved productivity by 20%, or saved the company $100,000, or brought XYZ business in the door, full stop, that completes the sentence. So every achievement that you have written on your resume, you need to read and go, so what? And see if you've satisfied the so what principle. And can
I add a so what to that? So yeah, if you're not job hunting, you apply that to pushing for a leadership position, or pushing a case for a change in dynamics that you want to see. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So
how do we use that beyond recruitment?
Well, internal, for like internal recruitment. So, well, if you're trying to get something, if you're trying to put a project forward, then you could use that so what principle for what are the parameters of your project. Because let's say you're presenting something to the leadership team, a new project, and they're reading through it. Well, they want to know what's the cost, what's the return. You've got to satisfy all those. What are the resources that we need? You've got to satisfy the questions that they're going to ask. And just like you would that's why I always say keep a folder on your desktop of your achievements throughout the year, because when you get to your performance appraisal, you won't remember them. And so you keep those in so that when you're going for a performance appraisal, they want to know, like, if you're working for an organization and you're on a particular salary, you're paid a salary to do that job, which are your responsibilities that's in your position description. So that's what they expect you to do. They expect you to meet all those responsibilities 100%. Where you get the increase or the promotion is where you've gone over and above. So basically what you want to say at promotion time, I've done this over and above what's required, what you asked for to do my job for the salary that I have. I've gone over and above. This is what I've done, and this is why I warrant, or I'd like to ask for, an increase in my salary. So owning those achievements, and it may be, I mentored 2 new staff members this year, and they're now fully trained. That wasn't part of my job description originally, but I did that. I took on a new project. I did this. I'm 10% above my targets, whatever it is. You want to be able to go into that performance appraisal with the why. Why should I, why am I asking for an increase? So if I've only been there a year and I've only just done my job, it's going to be harder to get an increase because you're doing what they've asked you to do for the salary that they're paying you. To get the increase, you always need to put a case forward about what have you done to go over and above. And, where are you going? What are you doing to get to that next level? So that's where you really need to do. You need to own, like I said, the top 10, they own those achievements. They own the fact that this is what I've done, but they keep track of it. You've got to keep track, because
I'd be interested, because we've got 20 minutes left. I'd be interested to know if anyone here actually does, when they put forward their case, whether you're running your own business, which I know you are, Danielle, whether you're promoting the efforts of you going over and above, or whether when you go for that pay or that better position or whatever, if women are more likely to do that.
If women are more,
if anyone does that.
Anyone, are you asking me that? Or are you
No,
asking?
I'm asking the group if anyone does that.
I've done that before in the past, and another great tip that someone shared with me once was because I think as women, like, a lot of the time we can have sort of imposter syndrome as well. It's like, oh, I didn't really achieve that. But yeah, tip someone shared with me once was to, like, file away in your emails, like, all the awesome feedback that you get from people during the year, where it's like, oh, great job on this, Camilla, or, fantastic result. And that's like hard evidence that actually, that is your big achievement that you can, you should be really proud of, sort of boost your confidence a bit. And then, yeah, at the end of the year, when it's time to go for, the performance appraisal, you can, like, look at that folder, look at those key achievements and just, like, create a list. So yeah, I've done that in the past before.
It's a good one. I like that one.
Imposter syndrome is something like that. The imposter syndrome, that's a word that came out like in the 70s, that then all of a sudden became fashionable again. And it's really just self-doubt. And the thing is that you will have self-doubt the rest of your life. I have self-doubt every time. But how do you get over self-doubt? And really, you got to look at it as that, okay, I haven't done these 2 things. That doesn't mean I can't do them. These are like in a position description, when people hire for promotions or hire for roles within other organization, they want, out of 10 boxes, they want people who tick 6, because hiring someone who ticks 9 to 10 boxes is not a good idea, because those people are probably not going to be there They're going to get bored. Usually companies want people who are going to grow into the role. And a lot of times that women won't answer the ads or go for those internal promotions because they don't think they tick enough boxes, and they have the self-doubt. And again, that's where the advocates, remember I talked about the domino effect? This is where the advocates are important, because they're the ones that you call, I'm thinking about going for this role in XYZ division, but haven't ticked enough boxes. And they're the ones that go, are you crazy? What are you waiting for? Why wouldn't you go? And I would see within the recruitment processes that I went through, that people who were only ticking 4 boxes, which are the guys, 4 to 6, they would go for any role that they saw. They'd go, oh, there's a role, I'm going to go for it. I can do that. And the manager would go, John has applied for this role. He's got no hope in getting it. He only ticks about 4 boxes, but put him through the process. It will be good for him. And so then John goes through the process, gets to meet all these senior people that he would have never met in a million years, because they're panel interviews and, they're from other divisions. The manager would come back and go, he's still not ready, but wow, he was impressive. And all of a sudden, John is on the radar now. And so on average, internal promotions, and it takes 3 times. It takes 3 times. Now, the other thing is, women that would go for them, they'd go through the process once, but if they didn't get it again, it was harder to get them to go for number 2 and number 3. And I continually would have to say, sometimes this might take 3 times, and don't be discouraged by it. And that's the importance of an advocate, because they're the person who will tell them. So the advocate, if there's anything that you guys take away today, more than anything, is having those people in your corner, because they are the people who will be the ones that say, well, why wouldn't you go for that role? What have you got to lose by going and take your self-doubt with you to that interview? And it's okay to go to the interviewer. I haven't done this, I haven't done that, but I can't wait to learn. And I know I can do this. And also too, a lot of times when people have self-doubt about what they can do, they think that they want more than what it is. And so, somebody might say experienced in, we want somebody that has experience in XYZ. Well, the person asking for that, their level of experience might be a lot less than what you think. And you'll never know if you don't go in there and ask. And then also too, can I just say, especially in some of the large corporates, when they're interviewing people and you make a good impression, you might not be the person for the role that they're looking for, but then they go, she'd be really good for another role that's coming up next month. Or I know somebody else in another division that's looking for XYZ. So this is all part of your networking. And again, what's the worst? They say, no, you're not ready for this role. Okay, when will I be ready? And what do I need to get there next time? These are all learning experience. So
at what point does gender come into that? Because I know many women, though, who have gone for these roles who have been overlooked purely because of gender. They've been more pushed towards a role that could be more client facing or more less operations, more I don't know, just different, more franchise management, different things like that.
I don't look, my own experience of doing this, the gender part was less, and then the having the support systems. And because most of the people that I dealt with wanted a balance in their team, and they didn't want all guys in their team, or they didn't want the, if someone feels that they have been pushed because of their gender, they need to speak up quickly and find, because that's blatant discrimination. And that's where, if that's happening, because most of these large, I know within the financial services, they have very strict anti-discrimination, and the HR areas are very aware of what should and shouldn't be happening. So if anything like that happens, it is frowned upon a lot within organization, but they can't do anything about it if people don't speak up. So if you feel like now, one of the examples this is a perfect example for this. Okay, I use this in the book as well. At one of the conferences that we held, I had a young girl come up to me and she said, I feel that, can I speak to you? Because I feel like I'm being discriminated against. And I said, well, in what way? So we had a chat. Then I wanted to chat to her more. So I actually had her come into the office because you can't really have those chats at conferences. And anyway, so what was happening? She was a young business development consultant. And basically the business development consultant is kind of in training to be a business development manager within a large financial institution. So she said, I'm in this team of business development company, and I have been given all the bad clients, all the clients nobody wants. And I said, well, what about the rest of the business development consultants? Have they been given bad clients too? Yeah, we've been given all these really bad clients. And I said to her, that you're not being discriminated against. You're the new kid on the block. And when you're the new kid in the block in a business development role, you're going to get all the non-risk clients, or basically you're going to get the clients that they're going to let you cut your teeth on. They're not going to give you the big clients until you prove yourself. If all the other new business development consultants weren't getting bad clients, well then, okay, maybe. But the problem wasn't discrimination, because she clearly was, because she was actually thinking about leaving the organization, and which would have been a shame because this organization is very good on diversity. And I said to her, I said that, the problem is that she didn't have anybody to talk to ask the question. The other problem was the company didn't have a proper, whoever her manager was, didn't have a proper induction, because all they would have had to do is give her the why, to say something very simple like, hey, you're the new kid on the block. You guys are going to all get these clients because we want you to prove yourself first. Then when you prove yourself, we'll give you better clients. Instead, she's feeling like she's getting these because of her gender and her race. And that was not the case at all. So sometimes people will misinterpret what the issues are because they haven't asked the questions. And I think that's really important, and there could be cases of discrimination, but you won't know if you don't ask, and you won't know. And the good thing is that she did ask for help. And because she did ask for help, then I was able to clarify. I actually put her in touch with someone else as well. And she'll probably have a great career with that organization. But it'd be a shame to move or leave somewhere because of a misperception. So that's where
we should ask anyone if they've got any questions on that point. If there's any, because we're 10-2, are there any questions related to that from your own experiences? Or is there anything more, I suppose, around that top 10%, getting there, challenging yourself in the workforce?
And also to you guys, if there's something that that you want to ask and you don't want to ask it in a form, and just send me a direct message through LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer any of those questions. Like if there's something that's actually happening that you want some advice on, just direct message me through LinkedIn, and I'll come back to you and give you my my views. The other thing is that top 10%ers, again, this goes to the communication, that they're very good about setting expectation. So if you're moving into to anything that you're doing, communication is the key. Setting the expectation. How long is it going to take you? Make sure the quality is there. That there is nothing left in doubt. Setting expectations through, I also say to people, conversation, confirmation. So if you're dealing with managers, or if you're a manager and you're having a conversation with someone, let's say your boss, and you're speaking about a project, and they go, oh yeah, go ahead and do that. That's be great. And yeah, you can have this budget. The first thing you need to do is confirm it in an email. So you have that conversation, and then you do confirmation, because that's really important. Because if something happens and something doesn't work, and 3 months down the line, they go, I didn't say you could spend that. I didn't know you were doing that. And the reality is sometimes people, when they're that busy, do forget, and they believe it. And so that's why you need to protect always when it comes to directive from a boss or money or resources or whatever. Make sure it's in writing. And just a quick little email. Thanks for the conversation today. As discussed, I'm going to go ahead with that project. This is the cost. These are the resources. Let me know if you need any information, because that will be your best friend in 3 months' time if something happens. So top 10%ers are very good about conversation and confirmation, because they're people. So they want to have that conversation and that verbal exchange, but they also are detailed people where they'll put it in writing. So you want to be able to do that as well. They're very good about change. All of you guys are probably going through change right now and thinking, I can't take it anymore. It's like, this is just like too much. And there's one more restructure. But, you know, change is going to happen more and more continually. And as a top 10%ers, the people within those teams that accepted change as a positive thing to then go forward will always get farther than the ones that fight it. Because one, they're showing a positive team spirit, like, okay, because the company is not going to restructure for the heck of it. They're only going to restructure if something's not happening. And often what happens, and probably we will see this happening more over the next 6 to 12 months, is that people will get discouraged, and they'll start thinking, I've got a new boss coming in. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not even in the office. They're restructuring. No one's communicating with me. No one's giving me information. I'm going to find a new job. Well, let me tell you, the grass is not necessarily greener on the other side, because they're all going through that. And the thing is, people, I always found when there were massive restructures, people left too early. They left before the dust settled. And with change and restructures, let the dust settle first so you know what the change is, because it could very easily open up to a new opportunity. And that might be your opportunity for promotion because your boss is gone, or they've restructured and they've got new positions and it's a position that you're really interested in. So
Danielle just asked a good question about that, the great resignation happening in Australia. Do you see that? Because there's been a lot happening right now, and the media talking about this seismic shift, and economists are talking about it too, because we're working from home. What's that likely to look like? Microsoft put out a report this week talking about a hybrid model as businesses restructure towards that. So we are about to go through that phase if we're not already. Do you think it's a great resignation happening as more people pursue purpose over profit in organizations?
I think a lot of times these things are overblown, and, you know, it's a story. And
what does that mean? You don't think?
Well, I think what happens is that, like, we're going through such a negative phase with everybody having to be home, and everybody is a bit pissed off. You know, they're kind of like, oh God. And so they probably are complaining about their jobs, and then they see a survey and they go, yeah, I'm going. But the reality is, I think the reality will be something different. I think that if anything, with the reassessing, I think we'll see more people starting their own businesses. I think that is something where people life purpose, and maybe I want to do this and I'm going to go start my own business, and they'll give that a go. But when push comes to shove, as far as going for a new role, that especially in an environment where everything's online, it's not going to be as easy, and they're not out there networking face to face. I think that especially within large, I mean, I can only really go on like what the large financial institutions and financial services do, because that's the lane I've always been in. There's not a heck of a lot of difference from one major financial institution to another major financial institution. So they're having the same issues as everyone else. And the people that I've been speaking to in that industry are not telling me that. They're, you know, they're telling me their companies have been really good about working from home, and that it's likely to change. They'll probably have a hybrid of, some people working, 3 days in the office. The companies are asking the employees, what do you want? And giving that sort of being a little bit more, I think, because everybody's had to work from home, everybody knows what it's like. So therefore, the collective workforce gets it. Where if somebody asked to work from home before COVID happened, then it would be foreign. They'd be going, oh no, what are you doing when you're working from home? Are you really working? That type of thing. So I think because we've all had to do it, we all know what it's like, and you can be productive. And I think people will probably go, they want both. They want both. Because I was talking to somebody the other day about, and I actually put a poll out about how they feel their career will be. Do you feel your career is disadvantaged by your career progression by working from home or going to the office? And the reality is, if you're in the office and you're working with people and they're all around you, you're learning from them, you're hearing things, they're telling you things. You're more likely, if you're all going out for coffee or going for lunch or going to whatever network, they're going to tell you that about opportunities. I think it does. There needs to be a certain amount of time where you need to be in the office and doing that networking and learn, especially when you're in a certain stage of your career. When you're in your 20s and your 30s, if I was in my 20s, can't even remember that long ago, but if I was in my 20s, I would be in the office, because that would be my opportunity to hear what the other people, to listen to what they're doing, to learn from them. If I can, I would be taking that advantage all the time. And that, because, you do have that, but then you get in your 30s, and then maybe you get married, maybe you have your first kids. Well, then you start having a balance. And companies are being really good about.
And then you start wanting to escape back to the office.
And then you want to start escape to the office. That's exactly right. And then you want balance. You want to be able to, beat the drop-offs, pickups, and, but also too, I think people are getting better at sharing that responsibilities as well. So we're seeing that.
Now, are there any questions? Because it's 1 o'clock. So if there's any questions at all before we wrap it up.
Do you know how many more I have?
I was telling you the whole way along. I was going.
You were? I wasn't even looking at my phone.
10 minutes. Yeah.
Let me quickly go through. I'm happy to just give it, to more. I'll just quickly go through and
do it, and we'll keep recording. But if you have to jump off, that's absolutely okay.
Yeah, and it can go, because there are a few. I know this is like, we probably should have split this into two. But I'll quickly go. One of the things that top 10%ers do is they own their mistakes, and mistakes are really important within everybody's going to make a heap of mistakes within your career. You can't help it. But one of the things I notice with them is that they make a mistake. If they made a mistake, they own it. I made a mistake, and this is what I'm going to do to fix it, rather than putting it off to somebody else or sweeping it under the carpet. So it's really important that if you've made a mistake, own it and go, oh, I made that mistake. This is what I need to do. And people appreciate that more if you've made a mistake to bring it up. And that's one of the things I always noticed that they did. Elevator pitch. And this is probably, Bianca, a session in itself about knowing your elevator pitch. I mean, when you meet someone,
Judith,
you need to be.
Judith, yeah. Can you give an elevator pitch? I would love to hear your elevator pitch, because you're a talker. I would be writing up and down.
I'm a talker. Well, that's exactly okay. So basically, when I was running Financial Executive Women, my elevator would be I'm the founder and CEO of Financial Executive Women, and we provide support, guidance, and experience through an advocacy program. So that's one elevator pitch. Here's another elevator pitch, and we had a whole session on this one time. And basically, the lady that was in the group, she was head of legal. And she goes, I hate to give an elevator pitch. I do not know how to do it. You know, it stresses me out. And her friend, who was head of operations, sitting next to her, she said, I know exactly what you should say. The context was that if you meet somebody at a function, what do you do? Like, what do you say to them? And so her friend said to her, if I was you, I would say, I keep the company out of trouble. And that's all she needs to say. Now that's enough to say, oh, tell me more. If you're in operations, I make sure the company runs smoothly. You know, that if you're head of sales, I bring the business in the door. So think of creative ways of how to say a very quick elevator pitch so that someone goes, oh, tell me more. And your elevator pitch is what you put on your LinkedIn. So you guys, I tried to link into the names that I had for, if I haven't sent you a LinkedIn request, then send me one, because it's probably because I either couldn't find you or I didn't have your name yet. And because I looked at all your profiles on on LinkedIn just to see how everybody was presenting themselves, because this is what the world sees. Now, these two examples here are bad examples. These examples are this guy. I try to get people that were, you know, not in Australia as examples. And you'll see Chris, and this is the first time I looked him up. Now, what's wrong with his picture? Can anybody tell me? This first one?
He's at the races and he's got his partner with him. It doesn't seem like he means business. And his credit risk analysis.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you. He's credit risk. He's at the races. I mean, come on. Why wouldn't Lloyd's, his boss, they should be, so if you're running a team, you should look at all their LinkedIn to see how they're presenting themselves, because they're also representing you as an organization. Now, the next one, and this was a presentation that I've done before where—
Did you make that up?
Picture. There's his one.
Real?
These are real. These are real. And I looked him up again, but because I didn't know how to actually put it on the screen when I was doing the slides. So this one, the second one was probably about a year or so ago. And he still has that picture. So he probably thought, oh, I'll make it good. Now, if you look his name up now, he's got a picture and he's holding a glass of red wine. So yeah, and again, he's still working at Lloyd's. And I'm going, oh my God, this is just not a good look. So that is his brand. And those are people who are actually representing organizations. Now, this is the second one that I got. And what's wrong with Emma in picture one?
Yeah, she's in her kitchen working from home.
Thank you, Danielle, very good. She is standing in front of the kitchen. We're trying to get women out of the kitchen,
Yeah.
and you're not serving yourself well. Like her picture's fine, except for she's standing in front of the kitchen. And then her second picture, sunglasses is never a good look. I couldn't find her again. I couldn't find her. So those are the bad ones.
Probably knows you've been stalking her and she's jumped off LinkedIn.
I know she does. No, we'll see on my LinkedIn. You can't tell that I'm looking at you because I have it blind.
It's recorded now.
It's recorded now. Yeah, I know. I've used them for a presentation. Well, it's public, so what can you do? So here's two good ones, right? Heather and Ellen, and they're both different in the way that they do it, but they have a great profile. And now the only thing I think on these is what I actually prefer, and I think it's better when people speak in first person. So, you know, the Camilla, I looked at Camilla's, and Camilla's got, hi, I'm Camilla, and I'm a marketing consultant. And then there was Kathy, who had a really good,
she's a member
profile as well. But there's the thing is that what you want is, you want people to look at your profile and get to know you. So when you speak in first person, it's more like they're getting to know you. So I always think with your LinkedIn's, it's better to do it in first person. Any of you guys want me to give you feedback on your LinkedIn, just send me a direct message and go, what do you think, Judith? And I'll quickly come back within probably about 48 hours with, oh, you know, I think I would do this or I would do that. and like your picture. But you see how they have a background picture, they have a good picture of themselves. It just gives you just a little idea about if a client's looking at it, if a stakeholder, you want them to see you in a professional light. So LinkedIn's very important. Now, this is a really important part of what a T10P does. They don't levelize. And what does that mean? It means they don't put people on pedestals, or they don't treat people who aren't at a senior level as they are differently. And the one with T10Ps, they treat every single person equally. And I use this picture because this picture is of my girlfriend's daughter, who was 19 at the time. And they were at a Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting. And Karina says to my girlfriend, I'm going to go up and take a selfie with Warren Buffett. And my girlfriend said to her, oh my God, you can't do that. That's Warren Buffett. Like, she immediately told her, no, you can't do that. And Karina goes, oh, big deal, he's just another billionaire, right? And she goes and takes a selfie. Now, what a great experience for her. And also, if you notice Warren Buffett, no one's sitting behind him, no one's sitting next to him, and no one's sitting in front of him. The most important person in the room, nobody, they're too scared to go and see. But does he look like he's annoyed? He doesn't look like he's annoyed. So that to be a T10P, don't levelize. Don't think somebody is better than you or not better than you. People who, right from the point of, walking into an office, and when they're meeting the receptionist, to the administration, the top 10%ers treat everybody the same way. And can I tell you, it goes a long way in their career, because if you go to the reception, and I used to do this too with candidates would come in. Stephanie, who used to work for me, she worked with me for about 17 years. I'd say to her, what did you think? After the candidate would leave. And she'd go, they were really rude, didn't even say hello, nothing. Or they were really nice. Now that was a red flag for me, because then I would think, well, I wonder if they're a levelizer. So I had to then dig more to see whether or not they were just nervous and preparing, and they didn't hear. You try to, and then I would test more and more to see whether or not they were a levelizer, because you don't. True leaders are not levelizers. True leaders get every single person on board, and they treat every single person with the same respect. It's really important. And this is very quickly here. This is obvious, but not obvious. A T10P is never late. They're always early. They're always tend to get in a habit of always being early. Because if you're late to meetings, or if you're late to appointments, it will go with your reputation, and people will continually. And you know how I got cured by my father, who, when we were little, and he lost his job at 40, he had to stay home, and my mom went to work, and we were living where it snowed, and he would take us to school. And he said one day, if you're not down at the car in 5 minutes, I'm leaving without you. And I said to my brother, where's he going? He's got nowhere to go. It's like, I thought it was hilarious. Anyway, we weren't there. And so he took off. And he left us there. And I don't know where he went. He probably went driving around anyway, we had to walk like a mile in the snow to catch a bus to get to school. That got there late. It never happened again. He cured us, because he didn't just test us. He did what he said he was going to do. And we were never going to have that again. So when I had my own business, if people weren't there by the meeting time, I shut the door. And they were not getting in that door until the meeting was over, because I did not want people coming into meetings. People come into meetings 10 minutes late, and then you got to rehash what you've just been talking about. You're always like, no, and you only have to do that once, and they'll never be late again. So that's really important. Returning phone calls. One of the biggest complaints that people would complain about within organizations about other people is they never return my phone call. I call, they never return. Don't get into that habit, because it will be a reputational issue, and it could cost you an opportunity. It's the little things that as you get more senior in your career, that knock you out of that final offer, because they're looking for something. And if someone says something like, oh yeah, they're a really nice person, but they're always late and they never return phone calls, that's it. My decision's on the other person.
Now, Judith, we're going to wrap up in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Everyone's going to run back.
Okay. So I think the most important is understand yes versus no, and what you're saying no to and what you're saying yes to. And I think that is probably one of the most important things that we all get into, is about people go, well, I'm a yes person. I'm always taking things on. And well, are you saying yes to something that you showed somebody 5 times before and they're just taking advantage of you? Well, then you should say no. But are you saying no to something that's going to help you in your career and improve your skill levels? Well, then you should say yes. And then in doubt, ask your advocate, because you don't want to miss an opportunity and say no because you don't think you have the time, but it's something that's going to be really beneficial for your career. So anyway, sorry we went over. But does anybody have any questions?